Okay, this is section 4 in chapter 2, water in the atmosphere. So that's a big part of our atmosphere, right? We don't have a completely dry atmosphere, we have water. To begin with, anytime we talk about water, we want to talk about the water cycle, right? So water cycle is that movement of the water between the atmosphere and Earth's surface. So 3 basic parts to that, right? Really, there is going to be evaporation, and then that will condensate and then precipitate back to Earth. So evaporation, condensation, precipitation. So in evaporation, water molecules in the liquid escape into air as a water vapor. And once we have water vapor in our air, it's obviously going to possibly condensate and precipitate back down to Earth. So that's how that whole water cycle keeps the balance of liquid water here on Earth, how we want it to be. Humidity is something we are very, very familiar with here in Nebraska, and the fact that we have a lot of humidity here. The air here is not dry. We have a lot of water or moisture in our air, especially during the summertime. A lot of times they'll talk about the temperature, but they'll also talk about the humidity along with the temperature, because adding water to the air actually makes it feel hotter than it actually is. You felt that heaviness probably outside when you've been there and it's been humid, not just hot, but humid. So we measure that humidity, and I'll talk about that. If it's 100% humidity, it's raining. Other than that, though, we talk about how humid it is going to be how much water percentage is in the air. We use a psychrometer to measure humidity in the air. Okay, so clouds are a big part of this. Clouds are actually suspended droplets of water. So they form when the water vapor in the air condenses to form liquid water or ice crystals. So basically, you're looking at crystals of water up in the air when you look at a cloud. It's basically a bunch of like water droplets hanging out together. So in order for this water to fall back down to Earth, eventually it has to condensate. So those water vapor material or water vapor stuff is going to condense and become liquid water that can then precipitate back down to Earth. So you can kind of see in the picture there, the water vapor is going to be those tiny particles that form the cloud. What happens to cause that? Well, warm air from the surface starts to move up and cools, and as it cools, the air cools to the dew point and condensation begins. And once that begins, we can start the cloud formation because of water vapor condensing, forming those clouds, those water droplets that are part of it. So the dew point is the temperature at which condensation begins. Right there you've got a picture of a fly or a moth or something, probably a butterfly or something, that has condensation has taken place right there. You'll feel that a lot during the spring, or maybe a little bit in the summer. You'll feel dew on your grass, and a lot of times what that is, there's a lot of water in the air close to the ground. And if it gets cool enough, that water vapor will condense, and it'll condense right there on your grass. And that condensation there basically becomes water droplets that you'll see. So there needs to be something to condense onto, right? So it would be some particles that are on your grass or something, or on a flower, or whatever the dew happens to come on. But once that temperature hits that dew point cool enough, it's going to produce condensation, which causes that dew to be made. Okay, several different types of clouds. That picture isn't great there, I apologize. But cirrus clouds are the wispy, feathery clouds. They form fairly high up in the air, so that top one that you're looking at in this picture, it looks very wispy. That's a cirrus cloud. Cumulus clouds are going to be very fluffy. They look like cotton. They're a little bit closer to the ground where they form, but they can grow to be very high in height. So like a wall cloud eventually can form from a cumulus cloud because they kind of just build on top of each other, but it's always very nice and fluffy. Stratus clouds are usually the type you'll see that contain the rain in them. They form in flat layers, and they cover all or most of the sky, gray in color. So if you look outside on a rainy day, you see those kind of flat gray clouds. Those are stratus clouds, usually meaning that precipitation is coming of some sort. Fog is clouds that are formed at or near the ground. Again, this would be condensation that cools closer to the earth in this situation. And so it's usually fog happens on a cool morning, a lot of water in the air, and so fog will develop in that way. So there's a picture of the fog there as it's developing. This is the end of the section on water in the atmosphere, and this is in your packet, the homework for this, and this also can be found on Enjoy!